When I sold the house they were living in, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was liquidating the past, liquidating my patience, and liquidating the illusion that blood meant loyalty. The doorbell rang. No, it was pounding, desperate, outraged. My son and his wife stood there. They weren't crying. Not yet. They were in that phase right before the storm. Faces red, chests heaving with disbelief. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old, and for 41 of those years, I was a librarian at Northcrest Technical College. A librarian's mind is built on order, on the quiet, methodical categorization of facts. My world is one of due dates and consequences. I was sitting in my small condominium, enjoying the sharp, sweet scent of my jasmine tea. The quiet was a luxury I had purchased, one I intended to protect. The afternoon sun was hitting the dust motes just right, making them glitter in the air. It was peaceful. Then came the pounding. It was not a knock. It was a frantic, desperate battery against my front door, the kind of noise that signals either a fire or a complete collapse of civilization. I set my cup down on its porcelain saucer. I did not hurry. I already knew who it was. I knew what they were here for. I had been waiting for this precise moment for a week. I unlatched the deadbolt and opened the door barely 3 inches, stopped by the brass security chain. They exploded through it. Marcus, my son, simply put his shoulder to the wood and burst the chain from the frame. Wood splintered. The door slammed against my interior wall, rattling a framed photograph of my late husband. Arthur, Brenda, my daughter-in-law, fell in first, stumbling. She was a complete wreck. Her expensive athleisure wear was rumpled, and thick black mascara ran in rivers down her puffy, blotchy cheeks. She was already hyperventilating, making small, wounded animal sounds as she staggered into my living room. Marcus was right behind her, his face a dangerous shade of crimson. He was waving a piece of paper in his fist, a lurid shade of salmon pink. "What did you do?" he roared. The question vibrated in my small living room, making the windows hum. "What did you do?" I calmly pushed the broken door closed and turned to face them. "An eviction notice," he shouted, thrusting the crumpled paper toward my face. "It says the house was sold. They gave us a notice." A notice. Mom. Brenda collapsed onto my sensible grey sofa, the one they had always mocked as old lady furniture. "Sold!" she wailed, her voice cracking and rising hysterically. "How could you sell our house, Eleanor? Please, where are we going to go? Where will the kids go?" I looked at her, then at my son. I looked at the splintered wood by my door jamb. Another bill I would have to pay. I let the silence stretch, savouring the high-pitched ringing of their panic. My calmness was a wall of ice. They were the storm, and they were about to break themselves against it. "It was never your house, Brenda," I said. My voice was even, perhaps a little cool. "It was my house. And yes, I sold it." Marcus looked like I had physically struck him. He sputtered, his mouth opening and closing as he searched for words. But our things, the children, our furniture. This is illegal. You can't just do that." I walked past him, retrieved my teacup from the side table, and took a small, steadying sip. The jasmine was still warm. "It was perfectly legal," I said, addressing the room. "The deed, the title, the mortgage that I paid off in full in 2005, all in my name. The sale closed last Friday. The money is already in my account. Last Friday, Marcus whispered, the colour draining from his face now, leaving him a pasty, sickly white. The new owners seem quite efficient, I continued, sitting in my armchair opposite the sofa. They are a development company. They were very generous, considering the state of the property, and they are giving you 30 days. 30 days is more than fair. I think it is, in fact, 29 more days than you deserve. Brenda's head snapped up. The performative grief vanished, replaced by a flash of the nasty, feral creature I had come to recognize. "We'll sue you," she shrieked. "We'll sue. We know our rights. We have tenants' rights." This was the moment, the final, clarifying fact I needed. "No, Brenda, you do not," I said. I set my tea down. "To be a tenant, one must pay rent. You have lived in my home for 5 years, and you have never paid 1 single cent of rent. You are not tenants. You are guests. And your visit is over." They just stared, their faces frozen in a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. The realization that the bank was closed, the ATM was empty, the resource they had bled dry was now, finally, refusing them. It was the sight of their stunned silence, their complete inability to comprehend a world where I was not their safety net, that sent my mind reeling backward, back to the beginning of it all, back to the funeral, back to the day Arthur died, and the day I let the foxes into the henhouse. 5 years. It has been exactly 5 years since we buried Arthur. I remember the day of the funeral, the dry rasp of the minister's voice, the smell of too many lilies, and the hollow thud of the first handful of dirt on the casket. But the funeral was noise. The after was the silence. I returned to our 4-bedroom colonial in Westerville, the house we had bought when Marcus was a toddler, the house that held 40 years of our lives. It was enormous, and it was suffocatingly, dreadfully quiet. The silence was a physical thing. It was a pressure in my ears, a weight on my chest. I would walk the upstairs hallway, and the floorboards would not even creak for me the way they did for Arthur. I would wander into his study. His reading glasses were still on the desk, next to a stack of history books he had been meaning to finish. The faint scent of his pipe tobacco still clung to the velvet armchair. I would trace the outline of the chair with my fingers. I spent weeks just wandering. From the dining room we never used to the sunroom he loved. Every corner, every scuff on the hardwood, every fingerprint on the brass light fixtures was a memory of him. Loneliness was not just missing him, it was being haunted by the space he left behind. I was 63 years old, and I was terrified of the silence. Marcus and Brenda arrived about a month after the funeral. They brought a casserole that tasted like cardboard and an avalanche of calculated concern. "Mum?" Marcus started, sitting beside me on the sofa, taking my hand. His own hand felt soft, unfamiliar. "We are worried about you," Brenda chimed in, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. "This house, Eleanor, it is just too much for you. All these stairs, the upkeep. It is a 4-bedroom house for one person. It is not practical." I just nodded, too tired to argue, too lost in the fog of grief to see the blueprint they were unfurling. "We have a plan," Marcus said, brightening, as if he were presenting a brilliant solution to a math problem. Brenda leaned forward. "We have been struggling. Mum, you know that. Our rental is so cramped, and with the kids being teenagers now, they have no space." Their children were 15 and 17, hardly toddlers. "So," Marcus continued. Let us move in. We will move in here. With you. No. Wait. Better. We will move in, and you can... Well, that is part 2. We will handle everything. Brenda inserted smoothly. All the maintenance, the yard work, the property taxes. You will not have to worry about a single thing ever again. We will keep the house safe for you. I must have looked confused. So Marcus clarified. We found you the perfect place, Mom. A brand new condominium development. It is gorgeous, so modern. And the best part, no stairs. It is all on one floor. You will be so much safer. You will not have to lift a finger. Safer. That word resonated. I was not safe. I was adrift. I was lonely. I looked at my only son, the boy I had raised in this very house, and I saw a savior. I saw a return to family, a buffer against the crushing silence. I saw an end to the worry. They mistook my grief for weakness. And they were right. Yes, I said. The word was barely a whisper. That sounds sensible. Relief washed over me, a genuine, profound relief. I would not be alone anymore. They would handle the burden. It moved so fast after that. They were marvels of efficiency. Brenda handled the paperwork for the condo. They helped me arrange the financing. It was only later, much later, that I realized I had signed the papers to buy that small, sterile apartment using the entirety of Arthur's life insurance payout. The money I was supposed to live on for the next 20 years. Moving day was a blur. They were so helpful, so eager. Oh, Mum, you do not need this old thing, Brenda would say, patting my grandmother's mahogany sideboard. We will store it in the basement for you. I left the home I had shared with my husband for 4 decades with just 6 cardboard boxes, a few clothes, my toiletries, Arthur's reading glasses, and the photo from my hallway. I felt hollowed out, empty. As I got into my car, Marcus put my last box in the trunk. Brenda came over and hugged me tightly. You are doing the right thing, Eleanor. You will be so happy. I looked past her, at the driveway. I looked at my garden. Arthur's roses were just beginning to bloom, those deep red, velvety ones he had been so proud of. The garden, I murmured. Oh, do not you worry about that. Brenda smiled, squeezing my arm. I will take such good care of it. It will be our little project. I drove away from my home, watching my son and daughter-in-law waving from the front porch, already looking like they owned the place. I drove to my new, modern, safe apartment, and when I closed the door, the silence was different. It was not the silence of grief. It was the sterile, flat silence of a waiting room. The first year, they played their parts beautifully. I, in turn, played mine. I was the grateful, recently widowed mother, and they were the dutiful, supportive children. Every Sunday, I would drive the 15 minutes from my new condo to my old house for dinner. It felt like visiting a set from my own life, strangely hollow. I would sit at the dining table I had polished for 30 years, now as a guest. Brenda's cooking was adequate, if often oversalted. I noticed the small changes immediately. A librarian is trained to observe, to catalogue, to note what is missing. My Queen Anne wingback chairs, the ones Arthur and I had found in an antique shop in 1987, were gone from the living room. In their place sat an enormous, black leather sectional sofa, the kind with cup holders and reclining mechanisms. It smelled like a new car. Oh, We just moved your lovely things down to the basement. Eleanor, Brenda said breezily when she saw me looking. They are just so delicate. This is much more practical for a family. Later, I ventured down to the damp, musty basement. My chairs were there, huddled together in a corner, covered by a stained painter's dropcloth. The subtle barbs about money began around the 6-month mark. Brenda would be clearing the plates and let out a performative sigh. Phew, I just paid the quarterly property taxes. You know, Eleanor, this place costs an absolute fortune to run, a real fortune. A seed of guilt would be planted, as intended. Oh, dear, I would say, flustered. I hope it is not too much. No, no, Marcus would interject, playing the magnanimous son. We are happy to do it. Mum, it is our pleasure to take care of the family home. Then came the masterstroke. It was a few weeks after one of Brenda's jokes about the heating bill. Marcus called me, his voice serious, professional. Mum, I have been thinking, since I am managing the main asset, the house. It is complicated. What if there is an emergency A pipe bursts at 3 a.m? I need to be able to access funds quickly to protect your property. It sounded so responsible, so logical. I think it would be smart, he continued, if you added me to your main checking account, not the savings, of course, just the checking, purely for emergencies, just in case. I was still so mired in grief, so grateful not to be the one dealing with hypothetical burst pipes, that I wanted to be easy. I did not want to be a difficult old woman. Yes, Marcus, I said, relieved. That sounds very sensible. We went to the bank the following day. I signed the form. I tied my financial lifeline to their anchor. After that, the Sunday dinner invitations began to dwindle. They were just so busy with the kids' soccer schedules. You understand, Mom, it is a madhouse here. When I would drive over unannounced, just to feel the familiarity of the place, the atmosphere was different. The house was messy, which I did not mind, but it was a neglectful mess. The garden, Brenda's little project, was already choked with weeds. Arthur's roses were wilting. Brenda, when I found her, seemed annoyed by my presence. Oh, Eleanor. Hi. I was just in the middle of a conference call. She was always on a conference call. She would make me a cup of tea, her movements clipped and impatient, and I would feel it. I was an intruder in my own home. I was a nuisance. I drank my tea quickly and retreated to my sterile condo. The first emergency happened just after the 1-year mark. A call from Marcus. Mum, bad news. The main water heater just went kaput. Flooded part of the basement. Oh, know your things? No, he said quickly. Just some of your old stuff. But the plumber said we need a new unit immediately. It is an emergency replacement. He named a price that seemed high. I just do not have that liquid right now. Mom, can you cover it? I will pay you back. Of course, I said, already logging into my bank account. I will transfer it. Thanks. Mom, you are a lifesaver. This old house, I tell you. It is one thing after another. He was not asking to borrow. He was just taking... I just had not realized it yet. It was an emergency replacement of the main water heater. It just burst. Mum. The cost was $1,200. I wrote the check. That single withdrawal for the water heater was the first drop. The deluge followed. Over the next few years, The emergencies became a steady, rhythmic drumbeat against my bank account, draining the savings Arthur and I had meticulously built for our old age. It was always a crisis. It was always a phone call from Marcus, his voice pitched with just the right amount of panic and resignation. "Mum, you are not going to believe this, but we have a major problem." There was the emergency roof repair. A spring storm had supposedly torn shingles from the north side. I had to get a crew out here immediately. "Mum," he said, sounding exhausted. They said it was urgent, or the whole attic would be water damaged. It is $9,000. I paid the deposit, but I need you to cover the rest. I transferred the money, my nest egg, the one I checked on for reassurance, took a terrifying dip. Then, 6 months later, it was a plumbing disaster. A main pipe had cracked in the foundation. It is a catastrophe, Mom. They are talking about digging up the whole basement floor. The estimate is $5,000, minimum. I transferred the money again, but this time, something felt different. The fog of grief, the one that had clouded my judgment for so long, was finally beginning to thin. In its place, a cold, sharp anxiety was forming. It was the anxiety of a librarian who knows the books are not adding up. I was a researcher. I knew how to verify a source. I still had the invoice Marcus had so dutifully forwarded for my records. It was from Apex Roofing and Solutions. My hands were steady as I dialed the number. A polite woman answered. "Hello," I said, my voice calm. "I am calling to check on a warranty for a job you did at—" I gave her my old address. I heard typing. She said after a moment. "No, ma'am. I do not have any record of a work order for that address. Not for this year, or the last 5 years. Are you sure you have the right company?" "Yes," I said. "Apex Roofing. That is us. But we have never done work there." I hung up the phone. A cold sweat pricked my neck. It was not a mistake. It was a lie. I looked at the plumbing invoice. Acme Plumbing. I dialed that number. My heart was pounding now. A heavy, sick thud. A man answered. "Acme, this is Frank." "Hello," I said. "I am calling about a job at—" I gave him the address again. A main pipe repair back in March. "Oh yeah," he said, his voice crackling over the speaker. "Westerville." "Sure. I remember that. Had to replace a whole section of the main stack in the basement." My breath caught. Relief. For a split second, I felt a wave of relief. He was telling the truth. "I am checking my records." I lied. "Could you please verify the total cost of that job?" "Sure thing. Lady, let me pull it up." "Yeah. Here it is." Total invoice, parts and labor, was $1,580. I froze. My vision blurred. 1,000. Yep. 1,580. Paid in full. Have a nice day. He hung up. I stared at the phone. $5,000. He had charged me $5,000. The plumbing disaster was real, but the price was a fabrication. He had not just asked for the money, he had inflated the bill by over 300%. I sat down, hard, on my sensible grey sofa. He was not borrowing. He was not managing. He was stealing. The sickness rose in my throat. I grabbed my laptop. I am not a technology person, but I know how to search. I went to Brenda's social media page, the one she was always posting on. Her profile was open for the world to see, a glossy catalogue of a life I did not recognize. I scrolled down, and I found it. Pictures from April, the exact same week as the emergency roof repair. Brenda and Marcus, grinning, sunglasses perched on their heads, raising blue cocktails on a beach. The sand was white. The water was a shade of turquoise that does not exist in Ohio. Brenda, wearing a bikini I knew must have cost a fortune. Marcus, looking relaxed, his arm draped around her. The caption, finally getting away from it all in Aruba. We so deserve this, the $9,000, my $9,000. It was not in my roof. It was in their tans. It was in the all-inclusive resort, the swim-up bar, the souvenir shot glasses. The betrayal was a physical thing. It was a weight in my stomach, a taste of acid at the back of my throat. It was not about the house. They did not care about the house. They were using the house. I was the target. I was the open pit mine they were harvesting for resources. I was not a mother. I was an ATM, with a clinical, shaking coldness. I logged into my bank account, the joint checking account. I scrolled past the large, obvious withdrawals, and then I saw them. Transfers. Small, regular, monthly transfers. $1,000, $1,000, $500, $1,000. Going from my account directly into Marcus's personal savings account. They went back years. He had labeled every single one. Property management fees. He was charging me. He was charging me a management fee to live in my own house, a house that was already paid for, while he simultaneously stole tens of thousands of dollars from my retirement savings. The woman who cried in the silent house for her dead husband was gone. In her place sat a woman I did not recognize. She was cold, she was methodical, and she was furious. The online bank statements were ghosts. They were digital proof, but they lacked weight. I needed to see what that money had bought. The anger I felt was no longer hot. It was a cold, precise thing. The quiet clarity of a librarian realizing the entire card catalogue is a lie. I needed to see the house. I put on my walking shoes, got in my car, and drove. It was a Wednesday afternoon, just past 2:00. The sun was bright, making the neglect on other people's lawns look cheerful. I did not call ahead. I was not visiting. I was conducting an audit. When I turned onto my old street, I did not slow down to admire the neighbors' flowers. I drove past my house and parked 3 blocks down, in a spot where I could not be seen, but where I had a clear view of the driveway. I turned off the engine and just sat. The first thing I saw confirmed the Aruba pictures. It was the car, parked right on the oil stain where Arthur's old truck used to be. There was a brand new, metallic black luxury SUV. It was one of those enormous, aggressive-looking vehicles that cost more than a year of college tuition, a model that easily started at $70,000. It was a car Marcus, with his middling job at a company that sold paper, could never have afforded. Not in 10 lifetimes. Not unless he had a sudden, secret windfall. My eyes moved from the car to the lawn. It was dead. The lush fescue Arthur and I had babied for 30 years was a mat of brown, brittle straw, scarred by patches of crabgrass. But the roses, that was what made my breath catch. Arthur's pride, his prize-winning roses. He had a dozen bushes lining the walkway, deep reds and pale pinks. He had spent hours out there, talking to them, pruning them. They were gone. They had been ripped out, every single one. In their place, there was just packed dirt and gravel, forming a makeshift extension of the driveway. They had traded his legacy for a parking spot. I let my gaze travel to the house itself. The house I was supposedly paying thousands of dollars to maintain. It was a study in decay. The gutters were sagging, choked with a black sludge of leaves from the previous fall. Rainwater had clearly been overflowing, as dark, weeping stains ran down the siding. The paint on the wooden porch, the crisp white trim Arthur and I had painted ourselves one hot July, was peeling in long, ugly strips. They were not maintaining it. They were not managing it. They were strip mining it. They were living in its shell, letting it rot from the outside in, while they used my money, Arthur's money, to fund a life they had not earned. The anger I felt was so profound, so total, that it became perfectly, terrifyingly calm. A decision was forming, hardening from a liquid suspicion into solid, unbreakable steel. I sat there for perhaps half an hour, just drinking in the evidence. I was about to start the car when a small white sedan with the county logo on the door pulled up in front of the house. A woman in a polo shirt got out, holding a clipboard. She looked tired. She walked up the cracked pathway, stepped onto the peeling porch, and knocked. She waited. She knocked again. Harder. After a moment, she sighed, took a piece of paper from her clipboard, and stuck it to the door. It was not white paper. It was a bright, almost fluorescent, shade of blue. She made a note on her clipboard, got back in her car, and drove away. My heart was not racing. It was slow, deliberate. Thud, thud, thud. I waited 5 full minutes. I saw no curtains twitch, no sign of life. I got out of my car, walked the 3 blocks, and stood on my old sidewalk. I crossed the dead lawn, stepped over the ghosts of Arthur's roses, and walked right up to my old front door. I read the blue paper. It was a final warning, a notice of delinquency from the county treasurer's office. They had not paid the property taxes. They had not paid them for a year and a half. All the fortunes Brenda had complained about, all the fees Marcus had been charging me, they had pocketed it all. The house was in danger of being seized by the county. They were going to let me lose it. They were going to let a 40-year home, paid in full, be repossessed for back taxes they had stolen from me. I pulled the notice from the door. The thumbtack left a small, neat hole. I folded the paper and put it in my purse. I turned around and walked away. I did not look back. I had all the evidence I needed. The era of Eleanor, the grieving widow, was over. The era of Eleanor, the asset manager, was about to begin. When I returned to my condo, I did not cry. Tears felt like a useless luxury, a waste of body heat. I felt nothing but a profound, Arctic calm. The kind of calm that comes after the storm has passed, and all that is left is the wreckage, clear and sharp in the sunlight. The librarian in me, the cataloguer, took over. My mind began to build a list. It was time to put my house in order. I did not even take off my coat. I sat at my small desk and took out a sheet of paper. I wrote 1. Bank. 2. Taxes. 3. Lawyer. 4. Realtor. The next morning, I was at the branch of a different bank, one I had never used. One Marcus knew nothing about at 9 a.m., right when the doors opened. I opened a new checking and a new savings account. It took 20 minutes. Then, I sat in their lobby, used my phone, and initiated a full transfer of every liquid asset I had left. I moved my dwindling retirement, the remaining life insurance money, every cent, into my new, private, fortified accounts. I left the joint account I shared with Marcus active. I left exactly $53.14 in it. My second stop was the bank we shared. I walked in, asked to speak to the branch manager, and presented my identification. "I need to remove a name from my checking account," I said, my voice pleasant. The manager, a woman named Sharon, looked at the screen. "Oh, yes, Mr. Vance, your son." "That is correct. I am removing him. Effective immediately." "Will he need to sign anything?" she asked, clicking. "No, he will not," I said. "I am the sole primary account holder. He was an authorized user. His authorization is now revoked." I had read the fine print on my account agreement before I left the house. It took 5 minutes. The signature was firm. I walked out, severing his access. My third stop was the county treasurer's office. I took the blue delinquency notice from my purse and handed it to the clerk. "I am here to pay this in full," I said. The clerk, a young man who looked bored, typed in the parcel number. His eyebrows shot up. "Ma'am, this is a very significant delinquency. With penalties, the total is $18,400. "Yes," I said. "I am aware. I would like to pay it." I slid my new, pristine checkbook across the counter. I wrote the check without a tremor in my hand. It was an enormous, sickening amount of money. It was the last large check I would ever write for that house. I watched him stamp the bill, paid. "This brings the account current," he said, handing me a receipt. "You are lucky, Ma. We had it scheduled for the lien auction in 60 days. "I am not lucky," I said, taking the receipt. "I am just in time." I had saved the house from the county. I had rescued the asset. My fourth stop was a payphone. I did not want the call traced to my cell. I found an old, battered one outside a convenience store. I dialed the number of the toughest, meanest-sounding real estate lawyer I could find online, a man whose entire website was just bullet points and legal threats. His assistant answered. I was blunt. "I have one question. I own my home, free and clear. My adult son and his wife live in it. There is no lease. They pay no rent. I want to sell the house. What are my obligations to them?" She put me on hold for 30 seconds. The lawyer himself got on the line. His voice was gravel. "You just said it. They have no lease. They are not tenants. They are guests. In Ohio, they are licensees. Your only obligation is to give them reasonable notice to vacate after the property is no longer yours. But you have zero obligation to them. It is your house. You can sell it to anyone, anytime, for any price. You do not even have to tell them until you are in contract." "Thank you," I said. "That is all I needed to know." I hung up. The final piece was in place. My decision was absolute. I would not just evict them. That would be messy, familial. That would invite argument. I would not just kick them out. I would liquidate. I would remove the asset they had anchored themselves to like barnacles. I would sell the home they had tried to steal right out from under me. I went back to my condo. I sat at my desk. I picked up my laptop and searched for the top-performing, most aggressive real estate agent in Westerville. I found her. Her name was Candace, and her picture smiled a shark's smile. I called her office. "Hello, Candace," I said. When she picked up, "My name is Eleanor Vance. I am calling about a property I own on Crestview Drive. I need to sell it. I want to sell it fast. And I want to sell it as is. Candice, the shark-smiling realtor, met me at my condo first. Her suit was impeccable. I signed the listing agreement. Then, we drove to the house. I had a key. I had not told them we were coming. When she walked through the front door, even her professional, practiced smile faltered for a second. She did not comment on the piles of laundry, the dirty dishes stacked on the counters, or the faint, sour smell in the air. She just looked past the filth. She tapped a wall in the living room. "Good bones," she murmured. "Great bones, actually. This is a solid build." "It is," I said. My husband was very particular. "The tenants? Are they difficult?" she asked, stepping over a video game controller in the middle of the hall. "They are not tenants," I said, "and they will not be a problem." She nodded, understanding. "Got it. So, we are not going for the happy family market. We are going for the opportunity market." 2 days later, the online listing went live. It was not a charming family home. It was a prime investor special and a contractor's dream. The photos were brutal and honest, showing the peeling paint and the weed-choked yard. The description was simple: sold as is, cash buyers only, fast close. The first call I had to make was to Marcus. "Marcus," I said, my voice bright. "I am having some trouble with the insurance company. They are claiming that roof leak you fixed is still an issue." "What?" "No, it is fine," he said, annoyed. "Well, they are sending an appraiser out to take a look, just to verify the work. I need the house to be accessible." "Ugh, fine. When?" "Tuesday. At 10 a.m. I need you both to be out of the house. These appraiser types like to be alone, you know." Brenda called me an hour later. "Eleanor, Marcus said we have to clean the entire house for some insurance guy." "What is this?" "He is an appraiser. Brenda. He is coming at 10 on Tuesday." "But why do we have to clean up for him? It is your house, your insurance." The words hung in the air. I smiled into the phone. "Exactly, dear," I said, my voice sweet. "It is my house. Just make sure you are gone by 10. The first phone call I received came on Friday. It was Marcus. He was not annoyed. He was screaming. Mom, where is the money?" "What money, dear?" "The bank account. The joint account. It is empty. I tried to buy gas, and my card was declined. Declined. It says there is only $50 in there. What happened?" I let a note of exaggerated panic enter my voice. "Oh, dear goodness me. Declined. That cannot be right. It must be some sort of bank error. A computer glitch. Do not you worry. Marcus. I will drive down there on Monday and get to the bottom of it." "Monday!" he shrieked. "I need money. Now Brenda has to go to the grocery." "Well, I am afraid I cannot do anything until Monday." "Dear," I said, sounding genuinely apologetic. "The banks are closed. You will just have to make do. I will sort it out. I promise." I was stalling, and he was buying it. The appraiser, a nervous-looking couple from a neighboring town, hated the house. But the next appraiser, who came on Wednesday, was different. He was not a person. He was a name on an email. Candice called me, her voice electric. "Eleanor, we have an offer. It is from a developer. Zenith Properties." "Oh, it is all cash. They waive all inspections. They can close in 5 days." She paused. "It is a low offer." "Eleanor?" "It is. It is probably 30% under what we could get if we cleaned it out and waited. I am not interested in profit. Candace, I said. I am interested in a result. Does the offer cover your commission and my expenses? And then some. Then I accept. Send me the paperwork. The closing was held at a sterile title company office. I was the only one there. Besides Candace, the title agent, and a lawyer for Zenith, who was participating via video call. I did not see the buyers. I did not want to. I sat at a long, polished table. The agent slid a stack of papers toward me, a mountain of legal disclosures and transfer documents. My hand was perfectly steady. I held the heavy blue ink pen, and I signed Eleanor Vance, owner, on every single line. I signed away the peeling paint. I signed away the dead garden. I signed away the basement full of my antique furniture. I signed away the stained carpets, the black-topped gutters, the new, expensive SUV in the driveway, and the ghost of Arthur. The agent took the last page, stamped it, and smiled. Congratulations, Ms. Vance. The house is no longer yours. The money, a very satisfactory wire transfer, appeared in my new, private, fortified bank account less than an hour later. I had done it. With a few strokes of a pen, I had finalized the transaction. The librarian had checked the book in, noted its damage, and officially, permanently, removed it from circulation. The wire transfer was complete. The house was sold. And then there was silence. It was the most profound, heavy silence I had ever experienced. I knew the new owners, Zenith Properties, would not be sentimental. They were a corporation. They would act with the cold, methodical precision of a machine, dispatching lawyers and process servers on their own timeline. The eviction notice was a legal certainty. The only question was when the hammer would fall. A day passed. I read a book. 2 days. I reorganized my spice rack. The quiet in my small condo was a coiled spring. On the 3rd day, Monday, the calls began. I was expecting them. The $53.14 I had left in the joint account would have been discovered. I had turned the ringer on my phone off, but I kept it on the table next to me, watching the screen light up. 4:17 p.m. Marcus. I let it ring. The screen went dark. A minute later, the little voicemail icon appeared. 4:19 p.m. Marcus. I let it ring. Voicemail. 4:20 p.m. Brenda. Ring. Voicemail. 4:21 p.m. Marcus. Ring. Voicemail. They called, alternating, 9 times in 20 minutes. It was a frantic, digital storm. Later that evening, I put my phone on speaker and listened to the messages. The first was from Marcus, his voice tight with a familiar, arrogant anger. Mum, it is Monday afternoon? You said you would go to the bank. My card was just declined on a full tank of gas. I had to leave my car at the pump. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Call me fix this. The next was Brenda, high-pitched, a prelude to hysteria. Eleanor, I am at the grocery store. The card was declined. All our cards are declined. What did you do? I have a cart full of food. You have to transfer the money. Call me back right now. The next few were just noise, yelling, demands. But then I clicked on the last message from Marcus, left around 6 p.m. The anger was still there, but it was underpinned by a new, thready vibration. It was panic. Mum, I am not joking around. Pick up the phone. Where is the money? The mortgage payment is due on the 1st, And you did not transfer it. You always transfer it by the 28th. Where is the mortgage money? Are you trying to make us homeless? Call me. I stopped the playback. I pressed the button and listened to it again. The mortgage money. I had to sit down. My breath caught, not in a gasp, but in a slow, cold realization. Mortgage. He said, mortgage. Arthur and I had paid off that house in 2005. We drank a bottle of champagne, not sparkling wine, real champagne, and we burned the mortgage documents in our fireplace. We were 48 years old. We were free. For 20 years. That house had been fully, completely ours. They did not know. In 5 years of managing my asset, in 5 years of living there, in 5 years of siphoning property management fees and inventing emergency repairs, they had never once bothered to do the most basic paperwork. They had never checked the county records. They had never even looked at the property tax statement, or they would have seen the zero balance in the mortgage column. The sheer, staggering incompetence of their greed was breathtaking. It was the final confirmation. I was not a mother. I was not family. I was a quarry, a walking wallet, and to them, a stupid one at that. That realization changed everything. It washed away the last, lingering particle of guilt, the last shadow of doubt. This was not a family dispute. This was pest control. I did not answer their calls that night, or the next day. The week crawled by. I listened as the tone of the voicemails changed. The arrogant demands melted into confused, pleading, and then slightly worried bleats. Eleanor, this is Brenda. The power company called. The card was declined. They are shutting it off on Friday. Please, what is happening? Call us. Mum, it is Marcus. Just call me. Okay, I do not get this. Are you okay? Did something happen? We are worried. Worried about me? No. Worried about the tap. Worried the well had finally run dry. By Saturday, a full week after the closing, I knew the notice must have been delivered. The legal gears had turned. The bomb was sitting on their doorstep. I went into my small, clean kitchen. I opened a canister. Inside was my one true luxury hand-rolled jasmine pearl tea, the expensive kind that costs nearly $100 for a small tin. I had been saving it. This, I decided, was the occasion. I heated the water to the perfect temperature, 170 degrees. I spooned the small, tight pearls into my glass pot and watched them unfurl, releasing their perfume. I poured a cup. I took it, and a copy of Leaves of Grass, to my armchair by the window. I sat. I read. I drank my tea. I waited. The anticipation was excruciating. A steel wire pulled tight inside my chest. But it was not a bad feeling. It was the feeling of power. The feeling of holding the string and watching the kite. The feeling of total, absolute control. We were back in the present. The echo of my final word. Over. Still hung in the air of my small, clean apartment. Marcus was staring, his face a mask of disbelief. He was still holding the pink eviction notice, the paper trembling in his hand. Brenda was heaving, her sobs now just dry, gasping sounds. Where? Marcus finally choked out, his voice cracking. Where are we supposed to go? Our children. My kids. You. You are making your own grandchildren homeless. You are throwing them out on the street. That was it. The final, pathetic attempt to use his children, my grandchildren, as a shield for his own avarice. I stood up from my armchair. I set my empty teacup, the expensive one, carefully on its saucer. My calmness was gone, burned away. My voice was no longer quiet. It was sharp, clear, and as brittle as glass. You, I said, pointing a steady finger at my son, made yourselves homeless. Marcus, you did this. He recoiled, as if I had thrown the hot tea in his face. What we did, nothing. We took care of you. We took care of the house. You did not take care of the house. I snapped. You looted it. The words dropped into the room like stones. What? What are you talking about? He stammered. I am a librarian. Marcus. I research. I verify. I am talking about the emergency roof repair. The one for $9,000. The one that, by a remarkable coincidence, happened the exact same week you and Brenda were posting pictures from Aruba. Brenda's head, which had been buried in her hands, snapped up. Her mascara-smeared eyes were wide. Her face, already pale, went the color of ash. She had not known I knew. She probably had not known how sloppy he had been. I am talking about the plumbing disaster, I continued, my voice gaining strength, the strength of pure, cold facts. The one you charged me $5,000 for. I called the plumber. Marcus. A very nice man named Frank. The real bill was $1,580. You inflated the bill by over 300% and pocketed the difference. Mum. That was for incidentals. And I am talking, I said, my voice cutting him off, about the property management fees. The monthly automatic transfers you set up. A fee. You were charging me a fee to manage a house that your father and I paid off in full in 2005. Did you even know that, Marcus? Did you ever, in 5 years, bother to check the public record, or were you too busy counting my money? The mortgage comment from his voicemail flashed in my mind. He hadn't known. The sheer, glorious stupidity of it. And the taxes, I said, walking toward them. The property taxes. The one thing you were actually supposed to pay. You just did not. You let the house go into delinquency. You let it get to a final warning. They were 60 days from seizing it. I paid it. Marcus. Last week, I paid the $18,000 bill to save my own house from your neglect. I saved it, so I could sell it. He had no words. He was cornered. The facts had him pinned to the wall. So, like a desperate, trapped animal, he lunged, not with his hands, but with his words. You are a monster, he spat, his voice low and venomous. A cruel, vindictive, bitter old woman. Dad would be so ashamed of you. If he were alive, he would be disgusted by what you are doing. That was his final, fatal error. He had invoked his father. He would be ashamed of you. I shot back. The force of my voice made him flinch. He would be physically, violently ill to know that his only son saw his death as a payday, that you preyed on your own mother while she was still numb from his funeral. He would be disgusted that you tore out his roses to park your $70,000 car, a car you bought with stolen money, while you let the house he loved rot. Brenda saw the opening. She saw her husband failing. So she tried the other tactic. The tears returned, but this time they were different. They were the tears of a failed negotiator. Eleanor, please, she begged, scrambling off the sofa and grabbing my arm. Her nails dug in. Please, Eleanor. We did not know. Marcus was just... He was stressed. We will pay you back, I promise. We will pay it all back. Just, please. Call them. Call the new owners. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you changed your mind. I looked down at her hand on my arm. I looked at her ruined, desperate face. It was not a mistake. Brenda, I said. It was a consequence. The sale is final. The transaction is complete. Zenith Properties is not a sentimental organization. I pulled my arm free from her grasp. You have 30 days. 30 days. The words hung in the silence, absolute and cold. This was the climax, the final, severing cut. Marcus's face contorted. The wheedling, manipulative son vanished, and the desperate, spoiled child took his place. He made one last, pathetic lunge, not for my arm, but for my future. You will be alone, he yelled, his voice raw. You will be all alone. We are everything you have. Everything you will die in this matchbox, all alone. I looked around my small, quiet apartment. I looked at the clean counters. I looked at the bookshelf, organized exactly as I liked it. I looked at the afternoon sun streaming through the window, striking the very dust motes I had admired before they arrived. It was clean. It was quiet. It was paid for. It was mine. I have been alone. Marcus, I said, my voice quiet but carrying over his rage. For 5 years, I have been alone. The only difference is that you made my loneliness expensive. Brenda seemed to sag, as if her bones had dissolved. She finally understood. The negotiation was over. The bank was closed. She just stared at me, her eyes empty and hateful. You did this, she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. You destroyed us. You destroyed your family. No, I said, taking a step toward the door. You were termites. You were in the walls, in the foundation, eating away at what my husband and I built. I did not destroy the family. Brenda, I just cut out the rot before the whole house came down. That was the end. And Marcus knew it. His face turned a shade of purple I had never seen. In a final, desperate, impotent burst of rage, his eyes darted around, looking for something to break. He lunged for my bookshelf. He grabbed a blue ceramic vase, a simple thing I had bought at a thrift store. He raised it over his head. You will pay for this, he screamed, his whole body shaking. I did not flinch. I did not even gasp. I just looked at him, and at the vase. That is a $20 vase from the Goodwill, I said, my voice flat. My real valuables, the things Arthur and I collected, are in a bank vault under a name you will never know. Go ahead. Marcus. Smash it. Please. Smash it. Give me a reason to call the police and add destruction of property to the list. He froze. His arm was still in the air. The vase was shaking in his grip. His chest was heaving. He looked at the vase. He looked at me. He saw the phone on the table. He saw my steady, unafraid eyes. He was beaten. Utterly, completely, and finally beaten. The rage drained out of him, leaving a slumped, pathetic man. With a sound of pure defeat, a low groan, he slammed the vase back down on the shelf, hard enough to rattle my books. I walked the last few feet to my door. I pulled it open, all the way, letting the bright, clean air from the hallway sweep into the room, clearing out their scent. You have 29 days, I said, my voice final. I suggest you start packing. They just stared. 2 broken, ruined people. Brenda was openly weeping now. Ugly, noisy sobs. Marcus just looked empty. They stumbled, bumping into each other, as they crossed the threshold. They did not look back. I watched them go. I watched them walk down the hall. And then I closed my door. I turned the deadbolt. The soft, heavy click of the lock engaging was the loudest, most beautiful, and most final sound I had ever heard. Thanks so much for listening to the story, everyone. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, like the video, and really help us out by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.